The news is that my Tigers are now out of the postseason, having lost Game 5 of the ALDS in Cleveland. Really epic series, really evenly matched series in a lot of ways, in a lot of strange ways, actually. But could not be any more proud of my Tigers just for getting to this point. It's ridiculous they even made it into the playoffs, considering they are 8 games below 500 in the beginning of August. Just a magical run where they're the best team in baseball for the last 2 months. I am wearing my October Ready Tigers t-shirt, which you may have seen in the locker rooms post celebration after the Tigers beat the White Sox to actually take the final wild card slot, as well as the same shirt was worn in the locker room after they beat the Houston Astros to win the wild card series to sweep the Astros. I had to pick up this shirt. It just showed up like last week, just in time for them to flame out of the playoffs. But I still believe they were indeed October ready. As little known fact, they actually did have a winning record in the playoffs this year. They finished 4-3 with the 2-game sweep in Oakland or in Houston, and then the winning 2, unfortunately not 3 out of 5 against Cleveland. So all in all, lots of fun. It's hard to be angry. It's frustrating, especially how Game 5 ended. I'm not sure how much you watched of these series. There's a lot going on last weekend, especially Saturday, Game 5, college football and everything else happening. So you probably haven't seen. Just another epic game. A horrible moment for Tarik Skubal as he gave up the grand slam and basically ended the Tigers' chances. A really inexplicable ending, as Skubal is going to win the AL Cy Young for sure, as we did predict in our Nostradamus prediction show before the season. He's hands down winner of the AL Cy Young, but had a weird inning. He was off, had a great start in Game 5. Did not really struggle until suddenly the Guardians just kind of pieced together some weird infield hits, balls just hitting the right place. I don't know if that led to some frustration or nervousness from Skubal as the bases were finally loaded through little fault of his own. But then he hits Jose Ramirez in the forearm and sends in the tying run at that time, tying the game 1-1. The funniest part about that is the crowd was irate, just booing Tarik Skubal, like as if he would do that on purpose to hit him to push in the tying run in a deciding game series. It was just absurd that anyone would think he did that on purpose, but they were irate. Unfortunately, the moment really got to him because the very next pitch he gave up the grand slam, putting the Tigers down 5-1, and that was essentially it. Even though the Tigers did scratch out a couple more runs, just an uncharacteristic and really strange way for Skubal to end such a tremendous season. So, it was obvious that the Tigers just kind of ran out of gas. The way they were doing things was not going to be sustainable, relying on their bullpen and essentially one starter. We talked about that in the previous episode, but I didn't know how it had worked for 2 months, and somehow it did for all that time. And it finally ran its course. Tigers stopped getting timely hits. They got a lot of runners on base, but unfortunately they couldn't knock them in. I think they were 2 for their last 26 with runners in scoring position. It was really frustrating as they had plenty of traffic on the bases, just could not get that final hit. So, of course, the bullpen or the starter by committee, pitching chaos, whatever you want to call it, had worked so well. It kindly met its match when in Game 4, it was the first time the Tigers actually had to play back-to-back games, back-to-back days or back-to-back nights. That had not happened throughout the playoffs, actually. They'd always had a rest day in between every game, strangely enough. But so it's kind of the first time you could see the cracks in the armor, that how the bullpen was going to get worn down, and that came to fruition. I do have to say that despite losing the series, I still feel AJ Hinch managed circles around Guardians manager Stephen Vogt, especially in Game 3, where Hinch announced his starting pitcher would be right-hander Kader Montero. So Vogt loaded his lineup as you would with lefties. I think it was 6 different lefties. So uh, Montero pitched only 6 pitches and got out of the first inning, and Hinch brought in a left-handed reliever in the second, which completely caught Vogt off guard to the point where he actually pinch hit for one of his lefties in the second inning before he even took an at bat.
Idiot.
And that just set off a series. I've never seen that. I don't think you probably have either.
No.
But uh, it set up a series of events where he eventually pinch hit for most of his lefties, which set up the Tigers later in the game to bring in all the right-handed relievers to mow down all the guys he brought in to the point where Vogt, I don't even he may have had one guy left on his bench at the end of the game by the 7th inning, I think it was. So it was hilarious how he just completely pants Vogt, but unfortunately, Cleveland just had a little bit more down the stretch as I talked about. So again, it's not the ideal way to end the season. It would have been nice to see the Tigers get to the AL Championship Series after making it this far. I think they had a great chance if they could have just won Game 4 in Detroit, because that would have meant Skubal would have been available for Game 1, which would be tonight in New York, and then available also for Game 4 and potentially Game 7 if needed, which would have been the one path that I could see them actually having a chance to beat the Yankees and go into the World Series. Once they lost Game 4 to Cleveland and forced a Game 5 where Skubal was going to have to pitch, it was going to be a bloodbath once they made it to face the Yankees, because they'd have to continue their bullpen bike or their pitchers or pitching chaos, hoping that the relief corps could stand up through back-to-back games, back-to-back nights. It just was not going to work. But that one path was there. If Skubal could have been responsible for potentially three of the only 4 wins they would need in that series. So that was fun. You just sort of knew. I mean, a lot of people were confident. Oh, we're up 2 games to 1 going into Game 4. We've got tonight at home, and then even if we don't win that, we've got Skubal in Cleveland. But it was like, well, once you didn't win that Game 4, it was kind of the writing was on the wall. I thought Skubal still had a great chance to beat the Guardians in Cleveland as he had done in Game 2. As I described before, it just didn't work out, and in hindsight, we kind of should have known it was inevitable that things the way the Tigers were winning games were in such tight margins that everything had to work out perfectly, and it just didn't. So again, proud of my boys. They are the youngest team in baseball. They had 13 of 26 starters were rookies in the playoffs on the playoff roster, which is remarkable. The best stat was after they beat Josh Hader and the Astros in Game 2 to knock them out of the wild card series. It was pointed out that Tigers' 26-man wild card roster was a total of $18.8 million in total salary, where Josh Hader was making $19 million that year. So just kind of emphasizing how remarkable what the Tigers were doing was at the time, and how fun it all was, and how much we should appreciate and enjoy it. And going forward, they have a lot of interesting opportunities to have this much experience in the playoffs, to have this much success with young players. You got to feel positive if you're a Tigers fan. Um, Tigers fans are definitely feeling positive as they set attendance records. I don't think we mentioned this against your White Sox, the last series of the season when they were expected to clinch the playoff berth. They set a 3-game attendance record over 120,000, 125,000, I think it was. In the playoffs, they finally got their 2 playoff games in Detroit in the division series, which they both set attendance records over 45,000. Mainly because since the last time the Tigers were in the playoffs, they've expanded the standing room only section. So I think they sold like 5,000 standing room only seats, which is just ridiculous. Probably a fire code violation, I'm assuming, but everyone looks the other way in situations like that. So a lot of reasons to be positive in Detroit. Scott Harris had a press conference today. It sounds like he's interested in adding a right-handed bat, as the Tigers are very lefty oriented, which has worked to their advantage a lot. But it was pretty obvious in the playoffs, especially, that we need more power from a right-handed experienced bat. So that sounds like a position point of emphasis for the Tigers in the offseason. And then obviously they need to add another starter at least. Of course, I'll get into that maybe later this offseason, who the potential free agent pitching candidates might be that the Tigers would go after. But unfortunately, pretty much every team in the majors is looking for starting help from the free agent market. So the Tigers are not going to be alone there and face a lot of stiff competition. So that's going to be difficult. What they do have going for them, of course, is the best pitcher on the planet, Tarik Skubal, to be their ace. We did see the debut of Jackson Jobe at the end of the season and in the playoffs, which came to mixed results, which aren't too surprising. But he's the top pitching prospect in baseball and can slot in maybe hopefully as our number 4 starter, which is not a bad place to be. We've got Reese Olson coming off an injury. Got Casey Mize coming off an injury. Cater Montero, I'm not sure what his long term potential is, but he did fill in nicely as a starter down the stretch. I don't know how long that's sustainable, but they've got some options. So if they could just add in a decent starting pitcher, someone like Jack Flaherty, who they traded away at the deadline and is now dominating with the Dodgers in the NL Championship Series. That would be a great candidate, but I think everyone in the world is going to be out there going for his services as well. So we'll see how this plays out. But all in all, the Tigers were indeed ready for October, and they made us proud. What a fun run! I'm ecstatic about all of it, and ecstatic about the future of the Tigers.
I mean, I didn't even, it was such a stream of consciousness. I couldn't even get a comment in on how, what a great job the Tigers did do. What a surprise it was. It must have been an amazing feeling for you with how depressing this podcast was for up until the beginning of August. And we didn't even realize when the Tigers started winning at the beginning of August that it was going to turn into gold. And I mean,
Yeah,
from a guy who's your arch enemy in the division, it's I just applaud you guys. And when I was doing some homework for this podcast, I was going through a list of free agents from teams. Tigers don't have any fucking free agents this year because they're the youngest team in baseball. All this talent is under control, and so you add a few
yeah.
pieces. You're probably you should have the money for it. You're probably like three players away from making some real noise. So
I think
I
you're
don't
right.
know.
I think
We'll
you're right.
see what
There's potential
happens.
there. Yeah, I'm a little worried about the finances, and Chris Ilitch has not shown much of a want to spend a bunch of money, but I also didn't think it was the right time to be doing that. But
Yeah.
feels like this is the right time after they've spent their time exploring what all these young prospects are capable of and got a good look at them in the most pressure of situations. So it'll be a good fun conversation in the off season.
Word Hole Media.